Okay, look, I know exactly what you're thinking. It sounds completely, utterly absurd. No way, right? But what if I told you that a modern global pop star isn't just, a singer, but is actually operating as a living, breathing incarnation of an ancient elemental deity? I mean, is it literally possible that Katy Perry is, structurally and mythologically speaking, the Greek god Poseidon? Stick with me here because the evidence we're going to look at today is absolutely mind-bending. To really wrap our heads around this, we have to establish who Poseidon actually was. So forget the cartoonish guy with the trident for a second. Back in the early Bronze Age, way before he was just known as the sea god, ancient records show his cult rivaled even Zeus. Poseidon was this terrifying tectonic deity. He governed the deep earth, subterranean waterways, and literal seismic faults. He was the earth shaker. Welcome to The Explainer. I am so pumped you're here today because we are preparing to dive into a rigorous and honestly super fun investigative dossier on this whole cultural phenomenon. We're going to look at how ancient archetypes are secretly shaping the media we consume every single day. So here's the game plan. We've got a highly logical, undeniable proof laid out across 5 distinct pillars. We'll start with pop stardom as modern myth, move into acoustic seismology and lyrics, check out megafaunal command and staging, dive into hydrologic pop chart dynamics, and then synthesize the whole shebang in the Poseidonian alignment matrix. All right, kicking things off with Section 1, Pop Stardom as Modern Myth. Let's look at the Pantheon of Billboard. So in classical antiquity, mythological pantheons basically functioned as these sophisticated frameworks. They helped ancient societies interpret massive environmental forces or structural instabilities, and even just collective psychology. Well, today, our contemporary media landscape, specifically global pop stardom, functions as a totally new avenue for this exact same kind of myth-making. When you actually audit Katy Perry's artistic evolution, this wild structural alignment emerges, and it operates across 4 core pillars: a commercial tidal wave of chart dominance, seismic acoustic energy, aquatic iconography featuring marine ecosystems, and dominion over wild beasts. This isn't just a stylistic coincidence. It's a consistent manifestation of the Poseidonian archetype. Moving right along to Section 2, Acoustic Seismology and Lyrics. Time to channel the Earth Shaker. Okay, so the ancient Greeks actually called Poseidon Ennosigaios, which translates to the Earth Shaker. They believed he would literally strike the ground to trigger earthquakes. Now, listen to Perry's 2013 track Roar. The production relies on these incredibly heavy bass rhythms that are literally designed to resonate physically inside massive stadiums. And she sings, like thunder, gonna shake the ground. She is absolutely channeling that tectonic energy. But then fast forward to her 2017 track, Tsunami. Here, she shifts gears to the epithet Aegeus, Lord of the Deep Seas. The lyrics use all these deep water fluid mechanics, sinking, anchoring, dropping to the floor. It perfectly models the gravitational pull of deep ocean trenches, where human agency is just totally surrendered to the tide. And this elemental mapping? It keeps going. In Wide Awake, the whole thematic focus turns to subterranean pressure and psychological gravity. The song charts this descent from atmospheric heights all the way down into dark, shadowed mazes, totally mirroring a deep ocean descent before you finally return to the shoreline. Then we have Rise, which perfectly embodies Poseidon Soter. That means savior from storms. The visual narrative of this song is a pure elemental struggle against turbulent water currents and atmospheric pressure, where she survives by literally converting nature's resistance into upward momentum. Let's jump into Section 3, Megafaunal Command and Staging. It's time to tame the beasts. Classical mythology tells us that Poseidon's authority wasn't just over water, right? It actually extended across massive terrestrial megafauna. Ancient Hellenic theology frequently invoked the epithet Poseidon Hippios. He was credited with creating the very first horse, either out of sea foam or by striking a rock, and he tamed wild horses for human use. In fact, ancient inland sanctuaries were frequently established way far from the sea just to seek his specific protection for livestock and equine health. And oh my goodness, this next part brilliantly illustrates that exact ancient concept. Remember the 2015 Super Bowl halftime show? Katy Perry entered the stadium riding atop a massive 16-foot gold mechanical beast. I mean, she is operating as a literal kinetic incarnation of Poseidon Hippios right here, asserting visual dominance over a giant apex predator in front of an audience of millions. But of course, she didn't just stop at terrestrial beasts. She immediately transitioned to staging total command over marine ecosystems. The whole broadcast featured these vibrant ocean floors and, yes, the legendary dancing sharks, basically proving that even Left Shark was ultimately answering to Poseidon's dual dominion over land and sea. All right, on to Section 4, Hydrologic Pop Chart Dynamics. Let's talk about the commercial deluge. 69. That is the sheer scale of this cultural deluge. During her teenage dream era, Katy Perry spent a staggering 69 consecutive weeks inside the Billboard Hot 100 Top 10. That's enough to drown out literally any competition. It's an unmatched commercial flood in modern pop history that completely saturated global radio airplay and digital sales. To really put that into perspective, let's look at the historical heavyweights. Michael Jackson's album Bad, back in 1987, set the ultimate record, generating 5 #1 singles and dominating for 18 consecutive weeks in the top 10. You had George Michael's Faith with 4 singles in 28 weeks. Janet Jackson's Rhythm Nation had 4 singles and 35 weeks. But Katy Perry's Teenage Dream? It matched Michael Jackson's legendary 5 #1 singles. We're talking absolute anthems like California Girls, Firework, and E.T., and then it just utterly shattered the duration record with those 69 weeks. It was an extended, relentless cultural deluge. But as we know from basic hydrologic principles, hypersaturation inevitably yields to a receding tide, right? And this perfectly contextualizes the historical trajectory of her career. Her subsequent albums like Witness and Smile marked this major stylistic retreat from the bubbly pop stuff toward darker, way more introspective, subterranean production styles. Just like the natural cycle of ocean tides, this receding phase reflects a gathering of force in the deep ocean before the next surge. The creative output literally moved from a surface-level commercial flood to deep-sea exploration. Finally, we reach Section 5, the Poseidonian alignment matrix. Let's synthesize the evidence. When we map it all out side by side, the alignment is just undeniable. Check this out. Tsunami maps perfectly to Poseidonian, lord of the deep seas. Roar is Ennosigaios, the earth shaker, producing huge seismic disturbances. Dark Horse, where she literally plays a sovereign, vaporizing suitors into dust, that's Poseidon Hippios, unleashing unpredictable retribution on disrespectful mortals. Rise is Poseidon Soter, forging resilience against the storms. And California Girls represents the lure of the sunlit shorelines, seducing mortals to the water's edge with these sweet sugar tides before the undertow strikes. The sheer volume of structural alignment across her catalog is just staggering. So what does this all mean? Why does this even matter? Well, in our media-saturated societies, celebrated artists really aren't just entertainers. They function as living conduits for ancient mythic structures. When an artist consistently channels the visual, sonic, and structural dynamics of a classical deity, their work achieves this massive cultural resonance. Katy Perry's modern Poseidon archetype demonstrates the enduring vitality of classical myth. It proves for sure that these ancient elemental forces are still very much alive, and they are continually shaping our contemporary media narratives. Which leaves us with this pretty wild final thought. If a modern pop star's career can perfectly mirror the life cycle and domains of the ancient earth shaker, what other modern media narratives are secretly shaped by ancient elemental archetypes? Keep your eyes open, you guys, because the myths of antiquity might just be playing out on the Billboard charts right in front of us. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and I'll catch you next time.